What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors sits down for what should be a simple interview, only to face disrespect that crosses every line imaginable? In just 33 seconds, a single comment would turn a friendly conversation into the most shocking walk-off in daytime television history. The studio lights were warm that afternoon as Denzel Washington walked onto the set. The audience erupted in applause. He was there to talk about his latest project. Nothing more, nothing less. Jennifer Hudson greeted him with a smile, but there was something in her eyes that suggested this wasn't going to be the casual conversation everyone expected. They sat down. The cameras rolled. Everything seemed normal at first. "So Denzel, thank you for being here," Jennifer said, her voice carrying that rehearsed television sweetness. "Happy to be here," Denzel replied, settling into his chair with that calm presence he's known for. The first few minutes went smoothly. They talked about his career, his family, the usual topics that fill the opening segments of these shows. But then something shifted. Jennifer leaned forward, and her tone changed. "You know, I've been in this industry a long time now," she said, though her career was notably shorter than his decades-long journey. "And I've noticed something about actors from your generation." Denzel's eyebrow raised slightly. "Oh, what's that?" "You all seem to think you're owed something. Like the world should just bow down because you've been around forever." The audience went quiet. You could hear the uncomfortable shuffling in seats. Denzel kept his composure, but his jaw tightened just a fraction. "I don't think I'm owed anything," he said calmly. "I've worked for everything I have." Jennifer laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was dismissive, almost mocking. "Worked? Please. You got lucky. Right place, right time. If you were starting out today, you wouldn't make it past the first audition." The crew behind the cameras exchanged glances. This wasn't in the script. This wasn't how interviews were supposed to go. But Jennifer continued, seemingly unaware or uncaring of the line she was crossing. "I mean, let's be honest," she went on, gesturing with her hand as if she were stating obvious facts. "The roles you played? Any decent actor could have done them. You just happened to be there." Denzel sat back in his chair. His expression remained neutral, but anyone who knew him could see the storm building behind his eyes. He'd faced criticism before, handled tough interviews, dealt with controversy. But this was different. This was personal. This was disrespectful in a way that had nothing to do with journalism or honest conversation. "Jennifer," he said, his voice measured and calm, "I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish here." "I'm just being real," she shot back. "Someone needs to tell you that you're not as special as you think you are. These younger actors, today, they have real talent. Not like your generation that just coasted on looks and luck." The audience was dead silent now. Some people looked shocked. Others looked angry on Denzel's behalf. But Jennifer kept going, as if she couldn't stop herself. "You know what your problem is?" she asked, not waiting for an answer. "You're stuck in the past. You think because you won some awards and did some movies that people care about, you're untouchable. But you're not. You're just old news trying to stay relevant." Denzel's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. Still, he maintained his dignity. "I came here to talk about my work, not to be insulted." "Insulted?" Jennifer laughed again. "Oh, please. You can't handle a little honesty? That's your problem right there. Too sensitive. Too used to everyone kissing up to you." "There's a difference between honesty and disrespect," Denzel said, his voice firmer now. "Is there, though?" Jennifer challenged. "Because from where I'm sitting, you just can't handle the truth. The truth that maybe you weren't ever that good. Maybe people just told you that you were, because they were afraid to be honest." That was it. That was the moment. You could see it in Denzel's face. The decision had been made. He'd given her chances to stop, to walk it back, to show even a shred of professionalism. But she'd chosen this path, and now he was choosing his. You know what? Denzel said, standing up slowly. I don't need to sit here and listen to this. Jennifer's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected that. She'd pushed and pushed, assuming he'd just take it, that he'd sit there and let her tear him down for whatever ratings boost she thought this would bring. Oh, come on, don't be dramatic, she said, trying to laugh it off. Sit down. We're just having a conversation. A conversation requires respect, Denzel replied, removing his microphone. And you've shown none. Are you seriously walking out? Jennifer asked. And now, there was an edge of panic in her voice. This wasn't going according to whatever plan she'd had. Over a few comments. Over blatant disrespect, Denzel corrected. There's a difference between tough questions and what you're doing here. He started to walk away from the chair. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay silent. The crew was frozen, cameras still rolling, capturing every second of this unprecedented moment. This is ridiculous, Jennifer called after him. You're being childish. This is my show. You don't just walk off my show. Denzel turned back, just for a moment. Your show? Then maybe you should learn how to treat your guests with basic human decency. I treat people how they deserve to be treated, Jennifer snapped back. And right now, you're acting like a diva who can't handle real talk. Real talk? Denzel's voice rose slightly, the first crack in his composure. You haven't said one real thing this entire time. You've just thrown insults and called it honesty. That's not real. That's just mean. Maybe you need to hear mean, Jennifer said, standing up now too. Maybe someone needed to knock you down a peg. You walk around like you're royalty, like everyone should be grateful you showed up. I showed up because I was invited, Denzel said. I showed up to promote my work and have a professional conversation. What I got instead was an ambush. An ambush, Jennifer scoffed. I asked you some tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't do interviews. Tough questions? Denzel repeated. You called my entire career luck. You said any actor could have done what I did. You basically said, I have no talent. Those aren't tough questions. Those are insults dressed up as conversation. The tension in the studio was thick enough to cut. Everyone was watching this unfold, unsure of what would happen next. Would Denzel actually leave? Would Jennifer apologize? Would they somehow find a way back to normal? You're being too sensitive, Jennifer insisted. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking. Everyone? Denzel looked around at the audience. Is that what everyone's thinking? The silence that followed was deafening. No one in the audience backed her up. No one agreed. They just sat there, uncomfortable witnesses to this disaster. See, that's the thing, Denzel continued. You assumed you spoke for everyone. You assumed you could say whatever you wanted and hide behind this idea of being real or honest. But there's nothing honest about what you're doing. This is just cruelty. Oh, please, Jennifer waved her hand dismissively. You're being dramatic. This is what talk shows are now. They're edgy. They're bold. They push boundaries. There's a difference between pushing boundaries and being rude, Denzel said, and you've crossed that line repeatedly in the last 10 minutes. So leave then, Jennifer challenged, her arms crossed. If you can't handle it, walk out. Prove everyone right that you're just another fragile ego who can't take criticism. This isn't criticism, Denzel said quietly. Criticism would be thoughtful. Criticism would be constructive. What you're doing is just tearing someone down to make yourself feel bigger. He turned to leave again, and this time he didn't stop. He walked past the cameras, past the stunned crew members, heading for the exit. You're making a huge mistake, Jennifer called after him. Walking off my show like this? Do you know what this will do to your reputation? Denzel paused at the door. He didn't turn around, but his voice carried clearly across the studio. My reputation is built on 40 years of work and respect. Yours is being built on this moment right here. Ask yourself, which one of us should be worried? And with that, he walked out. Jennifer stood there, microphone still in hand, facing an audience that looked at her with a mixture of shock and disapproval. The cameras were still rolling, capturing her frozen expression as she realized what had just happened. "Well," she said, trying to regain control, "that was unexpected." But her voice wavered. The confidence she'd had moments ago was crumbling. She'd pushed too hard, gone too far, and now she was standing in the wreckage of her own making. "We'll be right back after this break," she managed to say. But everyone knew there was no coming back from this. In the hallway outside the studio, Denzel kept walking. His security team caught up with him, but he didn't need to say anything. They understood. They'd been watching from the wings. They'd seen the whole thing unfold. Back in the studio, during the commercial break, the atmosphere was chaos. Producers were scrambling. The audience was buzzing with conversation. And Jennifer stood there, finally understanding the magnitude of what she'd done. "Should we go apologize?" one of her producers asked. But it was too late for that. Denzel was already in his car, already leaving the lot. An apology now would be empty, meaningless, just damage control for the cameras. When the show came back from commercial, Jennifer tried to continue. She brought out her next guest, attempted to carry on as if nothing had happened. But everyone could see the shift. The energy was different. The confidence was gone. She stumbled over her words, lost her train of thought, seemed distracted and shaken, because she knew. She knew that in 33 seconds of verbal assault, she'd made a choice that would define her show, her career, her reputation. She'd chosen to attack a man who'd done nothing but show up and be professional. She'd chosen cruelty over respect. And she'd done it all on camera, in front of an audience, with no way to take it back. The rest of the interview with her next guest was awkward. The questions were surface level. The energy was flat. And when that guest left, Jennifer wrapped up the show quickly, without her usual enthusiasm or charm. Meanwhile, word was already spreading. People who'd been in the audience were texting friends. Crew members were calling colleagues. By the time the show finished taping, the whole industry was buzzing with the news. Denzel Washington had walked off Jennifer Hudson's show. And not because of a scheduling conflict or an emergency. He'd walked off because of how he'd been treated. In the green room, Jennifer sat alone. Her team was outside, dealing with the fallout, fielding calls, trying to figure out what to say to the press. But she was by herself, replaying the interview in her mind, probably wondering where it all went wrong. The truth was, it went wrong the moment she decided that disrespect was the same as being bold. The moment she confused cruelty with honesty. The moment she thought she could diminish someone's decades of achievement and call it just asking tough questions. Denzel, on his drive home, didn't call his publicist. He didn't issue a statement. He didn't need to. His walk-off spoke louder than any press release ever could. It said that respect matters, that there are lines you don't cross, no matter how big the platform or how bright the lights, that dignity isn't negotiable. The interview had started like any other. A guest, a host, a conversation, but it became something else entirely. It became a masterclass in how not to conduct an interview, how not to treat a guest, how not to confuse shock value with substance. Jennifer had wanted to make a moment. She'd wanted something that would get people talking, that would make her show stand out, that would prove she wasn't afraid to go there. And she got her moment. Just not the one she wanted. Because the moment people would remember wasn't her bold questions or her edgy approach. It was Denzel Washington, calmly, deliberately, and with complete justification, deciding he deserved better. It was him choosing to walk away rather than participate in his own disrespect. It was him showing that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to accept unacceptable treatment. The cameras had captured it all. Every insult Jennifer threw, every measured response from Denzel, every moment of escalation, every second of his decision to leave. And now that footage existed forever, a permanent record of what happens when you mistake meanness for strength. As the sun set that evening, two very different conversations were happening. In one house, Denzel was probably having dinner with his family, the incident already behind him. Just another day in a long career filled with far more important moments. In another location, Jennifer was likely facing the reality of what she'd done, surrounded by advisors trying to craft the perfect response, knowing that no words could undo what had been said. The studio audience went home with a story they'd never forget. They'd come expecting a fun afternoon, watching a talk show taping. They left having witnessed something entirely different. A collision between respect and disrespect, between professionalism and whatever Jennifer had been attempting, between someone who understood their worth and someone who tried to diminish it. And through it all, one thing was crystal clear. When you invite someone onto your show, you have a responsibility. A responsibility to be fair, to be respectful, to challenge, yes, but not to demean. Jennifer had forgotten that responsibility, or maybe she'd never understood it in the first place. Denzel's walk-off wasn't about being unable to handle criticism. He'd faced plenty of that in his career. It wasn't about being too sensitive or too fragile. It was about recognizing when a line has been crossed and having the self-respect to say enough. In those final moments before he left the studio, standing at that door, he'd made a choice. He could stay, endure more insults, finish the interview, and maintain the pretense that everything was fine. Or he could leave, make a statement, show that some behavior simply won't be tolerated. He chose dignity. He chose self-respect. And in doing so, he gave everyone watching a lesson far more valuable than anything that could have been said in a normal interview. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how famous you are, how successful, how acclaimed. What matters is how you treat people and how you allow yourself to be treated. Jennifer forgot the first part. Denzel never forgot the second. The interview that was supposed to last 30 minutes ended in less than 15. But those 15 minutes contained enough drama, enough tension, enough raw human emotion to fill hours. It showed what happens when egos clash, when respect is absent, when someone finally says no more. Jennifer had her show. She had her platform. She had her moment in the spotlight, but she used it to try and tear someone down instead of building a real conversation. And when that person refused to be torn down, when he stood up and walked away, she was left with nothing but the echo of her own words and the realization of what she'd lost. The studio lights eventually dimmed. The audience filed out. The crew packed up the equipment. But the impact of what had happened lingered. It would linger in every future interview Jennifer did. Every time she sat across from a guest. Every moment she had to remember that respect is earned and dignity is non-negotiable. For Denzel, it was just another interview gone wrong. He'd move on, continue his work, maintain his legacy. But for Jennifer, for her show, for everyone who witnessed it, this was the interview. The one that would be remembered. The one that showed exactly what happens when you cross the line with someone who knows their worth. 33 seconds. That's all it took. 33 seconds of comments that went too far. And in response, one man's quiet decision that he deserved better. No yelling, no dramatic scene. Just a simple, powerful choice to walk away from disrespect. And sometimes that's the most powerful statement of all.